Hello and welcome to the program. My name is Luke Hunt. This is another podcast for The Diplomat, and with me today is Carl Malakunis, the director of what is becoming a hugely successful documentary, Delikado, and that's all about paramilitary environmentalists defending the rainforests in Palawan, down in the southern Philippines. Carl, welcome to the program.
Hi Luke, good to be with you.
It's done very well. Where did it start, the genesis? How did you get going on this project? I understand it's been a long time in the making.
Yeah, Luke, I was, as Manila Bureau Chief for AFP, for Agence France Presse, I was based in Manila back in 2011. And I was going to go down to Palawan just to do a innocuous story, I guess, a little feature on ecotourism down there. It was probably more of an excuse to go down and have a look at this incredible island as much as anything else. I was in touch with an environmental campaigner down in Palawan who was going to take me to some of the sites that he'd set up, these ecotourism sites. And a few days before I was about to go down, he was shot in the head and killed. Shot twice in the head. And so I decided to go down and investigate his murder. And while I was there, I was sort of uncovered or discovered a whole band of land defenders, environmental crusaders, sort of local people trying to defend their communities from the plunder of their lands. And it's such an incredible place. Palawan is one of the Philippines and Asia's hottest tourist destinations, and everyone knows it for its beautiful beaches and its limestone cliffs and then its magical rainforests. But behind all that, and I didn't know until I was there, were these incredibly brave land defenders. And one of those people that I met was a man called Bobby Chan. And Bobby Chan was a lawyer from Manila who was moved down to Palawan, and he had this tree made of chainsaws out the front of his NGO's headquarters on the main street of Puerto Princesa, the capital of Palawan. And I said, Bobby, what's that tree there for? And he explained to me that his men would go out into the forest barefoot and unarmed and use the citizens arrest law as the framework to do confiscations of chainsaws from illegal loggers. And they would come back after having confiscated these chainsaws. And there was such a massive climate of fear, and there is such a massive climate of fear in Palawan. But Bobby made this tree as a statement to people, to the businessmen, to the politicians, that he wasn't scared, and then his people weren't scared, and to try and encourage communities in Palawan not to be fearful and to try and overcome this culture of fear and impunity. And I realised right then that this was an incredible person doing something quite inspirational and different and set in this paradise place. And so that was the idea that's how I got the idea for the film, and it grew from there.
Certainly some of the most gut-wrenching moments in the documentary are when the communities are confronted by having to stand up to the corruption, the illegal logging. The mayor of the capital, she was an extraordinary woman, and I think she lost the election. But it's a fantastic film, if disheartening. How has things progressed since the movie came out?
Well, the mayor that you're talking about, Nieves Rosento, she was the mayor of El Nido, which is the most popular tourist town in Palawan. And I met Nieves when one of the para-enforcers, the people who go into the forest to do the confiscations, was shot and killed in the forest. And Nieves was at his wake. Nieves is an environmental campaigner turned politician, and she was close friends with the man who was killed, Cap Rubin. And she was burying the Cap at the cemetery alongside Cap's daughters. And I met Nieves afterwards, and she told me that she had been placed on President Rodrigo Duterte's drug list.
Right.
And largely as a means for powerful politicians and businessmen in that community in Palawan to get her out of politics.
And she wouldn't have been earmarked for arrest. She would have been earmarked for a bullet, I would imagine.
Yes, as we sort of show in the film, there's a mayor who was shot and killed after being put on the drug list.
Right.
And in our film, you have the president actually going on TV and naming Nieves Rosento and putting her on the drug list and saying, "I'm going to kill you," and using the language that he's known for. So this was just ahead of the 2019 election campaign where she was running for re-election in El Nido.
Mm-hmm.
And so we followed her in that election campaign. And yes, I mean, she was waiting for assassination. She was going out. You see her, on the back of a flatbed truck driving around, throwing out lollies to kids.
Yep.
As part of the election campaigning with a big smile on her face. At the same time, she's waiting for the bullet. She's waiting to be assassinated. And we know that the facts are that quite a number of politicians who were placed on Duterte's drug list were murdered. And so, yes, Nieves does lose that election. And the drug allegations against her were very much used throughout their campaign to try and discredit her. And we speak to her opponent about this. So I guess I'm giving away the whole film now.
No, not quite. There's a lot more to it than that.
Yes, well, and I guess we you wanted to know about what happened to Nieves, and she's such a powerful, strong, courageous woman. She won't give up, and this is, I guess, the essence of the film. Whether it's Nieves or Bobby or the parent forced to go into the forest, they never give up. Though it doesn't matter what happens to them. And Nieves loses that election, and she says, "I'm going to stay. I'm going to keep fighting." And for the past 3 years, she's been laying low, essentially. Not just because of the pandemic, but because she is such a target. But she ran for a board seat on the Palawan provincial board. And in an election when most of her opponent or the governor's politicians almost swept everything in Palawan, Nieves won. She came back. So she was one of the few opposition voices that actually won.
That's great. That's terrific.
Yeah. So she's starting her comeback.
Fantastic. I thought Delikado summed up very, very well the sort of thuggery and corruption that seems to plague the Philippines almost everywhere across the country. The governor of Palawan, I found rather typical, but he kept repeating, "I've built 5,500 kilometres of roads, 5,500, almost like he's expecting this applause. I remember during my time in Borneo and in Cambodia, that road construction was always, basically it was an excuse. It wasn't about building roads, it was all about tearing trees out. And I can remember in Sabah, in West Malaysia, that one hardwood log could be worth as much as $3,000. And when you do the numbers, say a road is 100, 200 metres wide and it's 5,500 kilometres long, that's an awful lot of money.
Yes. Yeah, as you point out, the story that we're telling in Palawan is not unique to Palawan. It's the same story of, I guess, corrupt development that we see across the Philippines, Southeast Asia, and beyond.
Absolutely.
And you're right. These roads that are built into these virgin forests, the first thing that happens is that they're used to take down to transport the trees that are brought out of there. And then the development ensues after that. Then it's cleared. Then there's palm. Then there's rubber. Then there's mining. So yes, it's and ultimately it's a completely different vision of development. And we see what's happening throughout Southeast Asia. We see what has happened throughout Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
The businessmen are making massive profits. The GDPs of countries are growing. And the people on the ground, the communities, are the ones that generally miss out on the immediate benefits of that economic so-called development, and of course are left to bear the consequences when the typhoon comes, when the rains come, when their forests now are denuded and their homes are destroyed, when 50 years ago they would have been protected from the storms.
Right.
And these are the types of stories that I guess we're trying to show in Delikado from the human level, showing what impact it has from their perspective.
Sure. I think trickle-down economics, which has been used as a grand excuse for ruling elites to make lots of money, has been widely discredited. It simply doesn't happen.
Yeah. Well, as I said, we see that as you said, we see that in Palawan. We see that trickle down economics. There's one scene in the film that just didn't get shown, and that was unfortunately in 90 minutes we can only fit in so much. But the daughter of this murdered para-enforcer, he was in the forest. We see him early in the film. We say, "Why are you doing this?" And he says, "Because when my daughter grows up, all the big trees will be gone." And then his daughter is next scene over his coffin saying, "Papa, please don't go."
I remember that.
And the daughter and his other daughters speak at his wake, and this is what we don't show in the film. And they say, to the loggers, it's our communities that are going to be destroyed when the next storm comes. You have a choice. You can make this profit now, but you're also going to be amongst us, and we're all going to lose our homes. We're all going to lose our way of life. We're all going to lose our economic benefits. And to me, that's, I guess, a very visceral sort of example of how trickle-down economics doesn't work.
Yeah, we've seen it, as we mentioned before, we've seen it all over the region. I think the great example was Tide Mahmood, who was he was the Chief Minister of Sarawak for 30 years. And when he retired, his family was considered the world's fifth wealthiest family, worth something like $25 billion. And what they did was they built a dam, shaved out all the trees, and the dam never got filled. They said they were going to sell electricity to Singapore. It never happened. But he retired. The family was worth $25 billion, which is absolutely extraordinary for a man in that position.
Right.
And
I can take you back to Palawan and Governor Jose Alvarez, who is featured in our film. At the time when we were making the film, the numbers have changed a little bit now. He was, as the governor of Palawan at a provincial level, he was still the richest elected politician in the whole of the Philippines, including all the national level politicians, including Manny Pacquiao. And he had built a business empire which began from a logging company in Palawan. Back in the Marcos dictatorship years, he was allowed the only logging concession in Palawan, and he had the legal logging company. And then after the People Power Revolution, logging was banned and his company was eventually closed down, and his fortune grew from his base of logging. And his critics will say that he continued to log throughout Palawan and beyond. We endeavoured to try and speak to him, but he declined to speak to us.
It's extremely difficult for people inside the Philippines and elsewhere to deal with these kinds of leaders, politicians, corrupt businessmen. What can be done from the outside? I mean, obviously your movie is a fantastic testament, but what else can be done?
Well, I think
I'll give you a heads up. I am leaning towards tourism next.
Okay. Well, yes. I think everyone in the Philippines is feeling a big what can be done, considering the results of the latest elections.
Right.
In the Philippines, we've of course Ferdinand Marcos's son coming to power, and obviously all those people who fought for democracy continue that fight for democracy and clean governance over the decade since '86 are looking and saying,
what happened?
What can be done?
Right.
And what happened? What can be done? And I guess it's no easy solution, but from my perspective anyway, as a journalist and a filmmaker, is you just keep chipping away, just keep trying to expose, and not giving up. And information is the most powerful way. Is the most powerful tool for change. So
Indeed.
we've just got to try to continue that, to try and get that information out.
Indeed. We've seen throughout the COVID pandemic, tourists have stayed at home, and there's been some kind of respite for a lot of these environmentally sensitive areas that have been under enormous pressure. I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but I'd prefer it if the tourists stayed away. There's a lot of businessmen who in Cambodia and Southeast Asia, Philippines, and they all think it's going to go back to the way it was. They want thousands upon thousands of tourists. The Thais are telling people, come back, we love you. And it's, I kind of remember a different type of Thailand before the pandemic, and the way tourists were treated and ripped off and scammed, all these sorts of things that have gone on over the years. And they're all desperate for money. They all see tourists as a cash cow. Do you think it's possible that tourists might become a little more eco-friendly and think about where they're going and what their destinations should be?
Taking it back to our film, there's Rosento, the mayor of El Nido. Mm-hmm. She doesn't say she doesn't want tourism. She doesn't say she doesn't want to go back to the very basics for 30 years ago. What she's asking for is sustainable tourism. That, of course, is an extremely complex and structure.
Yep. Go on, sorry.
But that's what, sorry, no, but yes, she's saying, don't turn away the tourists, asking them to be conscious and to make conscious decisions when they come.
Right. We're seeing a lot of eco lodges being set up. Ecotourism is the buzzword. It has been for a while, but it's making a comeback as we kind of emerge out of the pandemic era, fingers crossed. But there's been a lot of accusations that ecotourism is nothing more than greenwashing, and that at the end of the day, a lot of these businesses are controlled by cabinet ministers, friends of the ruling elites, and that it basically becomes another cover to keep on doing what they've always been doing, which is taking out whatever logs are left. Then it spreads from there, illegal fishing. And then that translates into the trafficking of people into jobs they don't want, but press ganged into boats, that sort of thing. And extremely difficult cycle to break, one leading to the other to the other.
Absolutely. And part of that cycle is, at the beginning of the cycle, is this land is often appropriated by the most marginalised, who have either, have that land stolen from them, or they're threatened or intimidated into selling that land, or duped into selling that land very cheaply. Mm-hmm. So starting from that base, then the illegal logging and, come and build, the resorts are being built with unsustainable use of natural resources, and on it goes. Absolutely. It's there aren't any easy answers to mass tourism.
No, there's
not.
The
problems of mass tourism.
Palawan also seemed to become a lot more popular after Boracay, which was once a pristine island. I remember it 30 years ago, the white sands. Then they built a golf course in the middle, and everything went downhill from there. And if I remember correctly, it was basically closed down. It's no longer functional. Was it then that Palawan got a lease of life from mass tourism? And is that the threat that it's facing perhaps in another 5-10 years if things do go back to the touristy levels that they were before the pandemic?
Right. I don't think there was a direct cause and effect of Boracay's problems and Palawan becoming popular. Palawan was designated as a protected area, and it was one of the last parts of the country big parts of the country to get airports that would allow mass tourism. And when those airports were built, then came the tourists. Boracay only has beaches a couple of kilometres long. Palawan's massive, and it's got hundreds of Boracays there, and they're the ones that have been developed, and that's what we show in our film. It's the race for these pristine beaches, and it's this dichotomy, I guess, with the business people who want to set up these places in paradise, but are destroying paradise to set those places up.
Right now, sorry, go on.
Yep. And then the tourists come and confound the problem.
Yeah, it just goes round and round. The Delikado, you've had tremendous reviews, and I understand you've won a couple of awards, which has only happened in the last week or two. Take me through that.
The film has really just sort of emerged in publicly over the last 6 weeks, I guess. We had our global premiere at the Hot Docs Festival in Canada. and now we're starting, I guess, a festival run. Then we were in a festival in LA where we won a special jury award. And then we were in a festival in California. I'm speaking to you from New York, where we're at the New York Human Rights Watch Film Festival.
Fantastic.
And then we're off to Mountain Film in Telluride in Colorado next week, and then Sydney Film Festival, which is going to be great to be able to have an Australian premiere in front of home audience.
You'll be coming home.
Be coming home for that. So really excited. So that's the sort of and then the festivals will continue. We've been lucky enough to secure a partnership, a deal with PBS here in America.
Uh-huh.
So we'll be screening on POV, which is one of their main documentary stream, on September 26th. So it'll be broadcast into homes across America. And then we're also we're still looking to sell to markets around the world, and we're building an impact campaign around the film. So this success is great, but the whole motivation for this is not just to make a film, but to try and have an impact with it. And our impact campaign is primarily built around the idea of empowering land defenders in Palawan, the Philippines, and around the world, and helping to protect the forests that they're striving to protect.
Right.
Land defenders are being killed in record numbers around not just the Philippines, but globally. This has been documented by Global Witness.
Yep.
The Philippines is either each year the deadliest country in the world or one of the deadliest, and always the deadliest country in Asia.
Certainly.
And so,
Yep.
So our idea is to try and be a part of a movement to help protect these land defenders. And the success of the film, what we're experiencing now, is wonderful, but it's about setting the foundation for this impact campaign.
Right. Now, you're an old stager. You've been in journalism for a long time. How difficult was it to get where you are now? And by that, I mean, we've been hearing stories and tales of woe from filmmakers and people who produce documentaries for the last 5-10 years now, that the industry is dead. It's not going any further. It's so hard to raise money. People don't watch documentaries the way they used to. Has that been your experience, or is the industry moving into uncharted waters?
Well, some people argue it's the golden age of documentaries now, with all the streaming services competing to buy. And so there are so many more opportunities for documentaries to get into, to be taken by the likes of Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, etc., Disney. So in some respect, there's a lot of opportunities now. Having said that, it's making independent films is not independent documentaries. It's not easy. We've spent 5 years of non-stop work trying to raise the funds.
Yeah, I looked at the crowdfunding.
That's a constant challenge.
You ran a crowdfunding campaign that seemed to have been quite successful. I know a lot of people who have started crowdfunding campaigns only to be disappointed, but yours seemed to have done well. Yeah,
we did a little bit of public fundraising, but we mostly gone through different organisations like Sundance Institute was a backer, there's a group called Candida Fund, Doc Society. There are lots of groups that want to try and change the narrative on climate change, on the environment. And so we were, I guess, very fortunate to be able to tap into those groups to get us the main funding to keep us going, as well as our deal with PBS, which is through a production company called ITVS.
Right. So you've done extraordinarily well with Delikado. What's next?
Well, I'd still love to continue to. This has been an amazing opportunity to make a film that I hopefully can have some sort of lasting impact, and I'd like to continue trying to make films about the environment and climate change, and ones that will hopefully inspire and enrage and cause people to take action. And I hopefully feel that, with Delikado, one of the reasons that it's been a success is it's not just sitting there talking about the problems. It's very much an inspirational film because it shows what these incredible people are capable of and what they're willing to do and what they're willing to sacrifice. And I'd love to try and continue that theme in whether it's my journalism or in filmmaking. It's almost too easy just to say what the problems are, but how do you try and create the energies within people to take positive action? And I've got a couple of ideas for other films within those broad parameters.
I won't ask you what they are. In fact, I'll save them for another time. Carl Melankunis, Director of Delikado, thank you very much and congratulations on the success of your documentary.
Great to talk to you, Luke. Thanks very much.